Okay, so tonight we're going to look at the strategic plan, but it also has very many elements in it. And you're only looking at 2 people on the team because this was really a collaborative effort that involved businesses and organizations, parents, students, administrators, over many meetings, professionals in the community, et cetera. So this is a huge effort. It was actually delayed a year, but actually I think that really helped us to fine tune it. And as Pitt County Schools emerged as a system coming through and out of the pandemic, I really think it helped us to relook at the strategic plan that we had formulated and then make it something that reflects us and where we are now. So tonight we're going to just go over a general overview of the strategic plan and the pieces. I'm going to be presenting a few pieces, and then Dr. Lasseter is going to be presenting most of what goes into the curriculum and all of the pieces inside the actual booklet that you have in front of you or online. But we also are going to talk about how we've rebranded when we started the strategic plan and we looked at the strategic plan and we got excited about the profile of a learner. And we made graphics for things. We realized that it was time to rebrand and look at our logo and some other things so that all of it matches and we emerge as a stronger system. And the graphics and things that we project really are a part of and what reflects Pitt County Schools. And I'll talk about that in just a second too. And again, we'll do the strategic plan and talk through that and give you a chance to ask some questions at the end. And we'll go from there. But the first thing I want to talk about is just that rebranding piece. So just a little history here. I love this slide. It's one of my favorites. I'm in communication, so I'm really taking all of this information and helping facilitate some of the meetings and then putting it together in a format that is palatable for all of you, et cetera. But when we looked at rebranding and we knew that we needed a new logo to match what we were doing with all of the others, we really had to celebrate and look back and say, where has Pitt County Schools been? Now, prior to the 80s, this actually was our logo there. I'm not sure it actually looks like an X across students. I'm not sure that's a good image, but remember that prior to the 80s, schools weren't really interested in logos, et cetera. We're in the classroom, boots on the ground, et cetera. Communications and those things weren't really hitting the school communications era, and very few people in a job like I have right now. In the 1980s, we got creative and created our PSC, their logo, used on a lot of print things, but again, not really something that was a branding, wasn't a school communications deal. It wasn't until the 90s that our Pitt County Schools logo that has served us very well from 1993, that we had the blue book. It's very prominent throughout the community, et cetera. And so, but again, in 2020, we kind of took on the Pitt County Schools Strong, getting through that pandemic. It really did take all of us. It was a collaborative effort. It really reminded us what our community means to us and how we have to work together to be successful. So we, in transition on the inside, knowing that we were changing the logo, et cetera, we intentionally used that, but it also very much represented what was happening. We had to strengthen and work together to be a strong community for our students and strong system. But as you can see, that translated over into, after many meetings and looking at it and really having some heartburn about, we can't let go of the blue P. But it's a book, but we do read books, but we also are so many other things and the traditional fonts, et cetera. So what we came up with was a nod to our traditional logo. It still has the layers there, different, more modern fonts, et cetera. And the layers really represent, if people are asking you this, what it means to us is that we are successful when we put all of our resources together. In other words, our students are a layer, very foundational. That's who we're here for. Our educators are a layer. Our parents are a layer, and our businesses and organizations. If you know anything about the connections that we have in the community, and Dr. Lasseter is going to talk about many more of those things in a few minutes, then you know that that's really what makes our students successful, is when we all work together and those layers really help to make our students successful. Okay, and we did launch our new website. You can look at that at pickschools.org. But at the crux of all of this is the profile of the learner too. So the profile of the learner is something that was actually in play before I came in 2018. So we actually interviewed and looked at 21st century skills. We thought, all right, we need to get more of a big picture so that our parents know, what will a learner look like? What will a graduate look like? Someone that's walking across the stage. What can someone expect our graduates, what skills do they need to have? We looked at that from a student perspective, an academic perspective, because we are the educational professionals, but then we actually got feedback from our parents and feedback from many businesses who came in and said, this is what we're looking for in the workforce. GUC came. We had many other businesses that we interviewed. We actually had a video from them showing our administrators and our teachers, this is the kind of worker we need. This is what's going to make Greenville and Pitt County more successful. And we knew that that's going to make our students more successful as citizens, et cetera, when we release them to their next step, whether that's college or career. We knew that we needed that skill set for them. Now, there are many, many, many 21st century skills, but what did that process look like? We decided, what do we need? What are our skills here that we're already really good at, but what are the 21st century skills that we really need to hone in on and make sure that we're developing pre-K through 12 plus? Because you know we have pre-K programs in Pitt County schools all the way through early college, which goes beyond high school to our colleges, okay? And then we want really prepared graduates, like we said before, for citizenship, for career, college, and that workforce. So that process developed, and you can actually see this on page 6 and 7. It's actually a fold out on 6 and 7 if you can't see the screen there as well. I'm actually going to refer to that myself. So if you're taking a look at profile of a learner, this really is where the graphics and the colors and the vibrancy began. And then we knew that when we added that old logo there, that we needed to make sure that, that it was actually something a little bit different and it reflected what we're doing. So if you'll take at the profile of a learner, our real icon for that is the brain tree in the middle. If you didn't see that, that's kind of our vision of growth, but it's also a brain. It also has many of those layers and colors, meaning that we have to work together. It's all organic, et cetera, to make sure that we have student growth. On the outside of this profile of a learner image, you see 3 words: cognitive, personal, and interpersonal. So we looked at a list, and this is a research-based list of 21st century skills. And we had our stakeholders look and say, these are the top skills, but we wanted to make sure it was balanced. So they need cognitive skills. Our students, we are committed to giving them cognitive skills. That's the academic language that they need. That's the academic skill development that they need. They also need personal skills. We heard that from our businesses. We heard that from our administrators and from our teachers. They need personal responsibility. They need initiative and self-direction. And we needed to be committed to showing them how to do that. But also the interpersonal was huge. Greenville Utilities, I remember the HR manager saying they have to know how to work in teams. They have to know how to work together. All of our projects are working together as a team. You can have the most brilliant person working, but if they cannot work with their team, they're not going to be successful. So how can you help your students that you're producing have those collaborative skills? And this is why we chose effective communication and empathy and teamwork. But you can also see that all of these skills really, you can see there's movement here. They're all represented, but they all work together as well. So what you're looking at is the top 6 skills, and you can see that we cheated a little bit and said we can't give up critical thinking, and so we named it problem solving and critical thinking. So there's a few more than 6 skills, but they do run the gamut of interpersonal, personal, and cognitive skills, because we want the students that we produce to have a well-rounded cognitive skills, personal skills, and interpersonal skills as was asked of us, okay? Now, if you're looking at, well, it's great to say creativity and innovation, but everybody defines that differently. We actually took that process, had our administrators sit down and plan, et cetera, looked at what the general definitions of those things were according to the research-based list of the 21st century skills, but we redefined and retouched these. So these definitions here aren't just something we took off of Google. They aren't just something that was in an article. They really are the definitions that our administrators, our teachers looked at and said, this is what we need. This is what creativity and innovation means to us, okay? So you have the actual definitions of problem solving, creativity, innovation, initiative, self-direction, so important, personal responsibility, empathy and teamwork, and effective communication. The other thing I want to point out is you see the icons on the left here, this little, like the words and the people in the brain, those actually are printed throughout the strategic plan. For example, if you look on page 11, you can see that those icons are integrated in the actual strategic plan, and Dr. Lasseter is going to show you today or talk to you more about what the strategic plan is and how that's different and how the profile of a learner is integrated into the strategic plan. But I just wanted to make sure that I pointed out, if you see those icons, then you know that that's how we're working on our communication skills. That's one, how are we doing this? It's great to say, this is the learner that we're going to produce. How are we going to do that? And how are we going to measure it? How are we going to hold our educators accountable for that? How are we going to teach them what it is, et cetera? So this year we did roll out the profile of a learner to our educators. Many of them have these in their classrooms, et cetera. And just to point out a little bit before Dr. Lasseter comes up, they also have a part of, I'll keep it right there, a part of this document. So just to look at this document before you move on, here is more of, so if you're trying to explain this to someone else, because one reason we get together is so that we can educate you as parents and community members, but also so that you can be an ambassador. If you're like me, I sat in a desk more than 20 years ago. And so school is different. If you haven't been in a school, if you haven't worked in a school, if you haven't been on a school tour, we encourage you to do that. We're thankful that you're here. If you're online, please sign up for one of the school tours that Ms. Dibble and Parents for Public Schools, or get involved in a school and make sure you understand what education looks like today. It's very different. It's super exciting. We get so excited about it. And so we want you to know that, we want you to know what really we're talking about here. So how was this developed? Here's kind of an overview of what I've just talked about. We do have a new mission and vision, and you may have seen that we've kind of broken that down to 3 words that we love to say. What are we doing? We're engaging, we're empowering, and we're elevating our students. You have to engage them to even get them interested and get them highly active in a classroom or in a skill development series or in a lab. So we have to engage them first, and then we have to empower them, meaning giving them the skills that they need, giving them the information that they need, because our point is to elevate all of our students to be the best that they can be and go and be successful. Some of our statistics that are for Pitt County Schools is on that page there. So if you're looking for some interesting things or have questions about those, that's there. Profile of a learner is there. At the very end, we have a listing of our schools at the very back, but the bulk of this is our profile, not our profile of learner, our strategic plan that goes from 2021 through 2026. And this is that package for you. And I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Lasseter to go over that piece.
And good evening to everyone. As Ms. Johnson shared, I'm Steve Lasseter, and I have the privilege of waking up and coming to a job that I love every single day to serve as Assistant Superintendent of Educational Programs and Services. And it has just been the highlight of my career to have worked in this district as a first in undergraduate, just so excited to be a teacher. I just couldn't wait. I decided to be a substitute teacher and had my first substituting assignment at W.H. Robinson Elementary in 3rd grade. And I will never forget Ron, that first student that I had an interaction with there. And then I decided to teach, and I taught at Robinson, was hired at Robinson as a teacher after graduating college, and decided to continue and have served here as a teacher, assistant principal, and now in this role, and I absolutely enjoy it. My nieces and nephews, they say, well, we know what a teacher does and we know what a principal does, but Uncle Steve, what is an assistant superintendent? What is that? And I say, everyone online, I forgot, I get so excited. And I say, well, my job really is to make sure that when students leave Pitt County schools, that they have the skills and tools to make sure they're able to take care of themselves and to make sure they're able to take care of their families, which is why the profile of a learner is so important. And it's so key because we want to make sure that our students have those skills and dispositions that they need to have in order to be successful. So if you don't mind, and if you'll indulge me for just a moment, I want to walk through our strategic plan with you. And if there's a question that you have and you're saying, I don't want to hold it because I want to make sure, I want to go ahead and ask for clarification, I am absolutely open to any questions that you may have related to the strategic plan or any point that I can clarify. But as we went through this, we began this process in this very room. There were about 30 people in this room from my department, curriculum and instruction. We sat in this room. Then we began to invite other district leaders. Ms. Johnson was here, and we divided this plan up. And what Pitt County Schools has traditionally done is we have traditionally used the the North Carolina State Board of Education's strategic plan. And what we've done in the past is we've just used it as an exact replica, and we didn't tailor it necessarily, but we used it and it was our guide and our plan for our district. But in my role, in kind of having some foresight, we said, that's fine. And we should use the State Board of Education's plan. And I'll share more about that a little later. We should use the State Board of Education's plan, but we should also tailor it for Pitt County schools. Education is local. And so we need to make sure that how we educate kids in Pitt County, we make sure we educate them the way it needs to be done in Pitt County and not necessarily how another district. So education is local, and I believe that. We went through, so we looked at those goals, we pared them down and kind of went through them, and we made sure that they made sense for Pitt County schools. We looked at the needs and how we would progress through each of those goals. We got stakeholder input from others in the community. We got input from our district staff. We got input from teachers. We got input from the Board of Education. And so we began to craft this plan very clearly and make it work for us. And I'm so excited to share it with you. We then talked to our principals and district staff and parents about a mission and vision. How do we organize a mission and vision? And mind you, we're planning and creating all this pre-pandemic. And so Ms. Johnson and I are working together, and then all of a sudden, Dr. Linkers, he tells us the plans, we're going to present it to the board in April of 2020. And then what happens in March? We don't come back. And so Ms. Johnson and I are just stunned because we had this great plan of a rollout. And so we had to put it on pause, but we continue to work and develop our mission and vision, align our goals, have measurable outcomes. One of the things that I shared with our team was that if we can't measure it in some way, quantitatively or qualitatively, we probably should not include it in our plan. And if the state of North Carolina, the state board, put in a goal that we could not measure, then we probably shouldn't put it in our plan, because education is local. We have to do what's best for our kids in Pitt County. And then we had to implement strategies and how we were going to monitor those strategies. How would we monitor those strategies for the next 5 years? What are the data points? And so I share this with you, going back to my point that I said I shared with you about DPI state goals. This week, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, a team of 18 of us went to the AIM conference in Raleigh, hosted by the Department of Public Instruction. And in our region, which we're in the Northwest region, Region 1, all of us, all the school districts work together. And the process that we sat through for the first day for about 3 hours was strategic planning and how do you integrate portrait of a learner or profile of a learner into the strategic plan and using the State Board of Education's plan. We were the only district in that room who had already done the work. We were the only district out of the districts. In fact, I will go ahead and say, I believe we are the only district in the state of North Carolina who has already used the State Board of Education's plan, tailored it to our own, and embedded portrait of a learner or profile of a learner. They call it portrait of a graduate. We call it profile of a learner because we personalized it for us. Profile of a learner, and we've embedded that in our plan. So Ms. Johnson talked to you about the little icons. And so you'll see some icons. And so if you want to know if in the strategic plan, what aligns with the skills and dispositions that we want our students to have, then you just kind of refer back to that chart that Ms. Johnson showed you to see the exact skill. Is it related to critical thinking and problem solving? Is it related to innovation and creativity? Is it related to initiative and self-direction, personal responsibility, effective communication, and empathy and teamwork? And our principals were very heavy on that. We wanted our students to have empathy, be empathetic, and be able to work as teams, not when they leave us, but as they matriculate through Pitt County schools to have that skill set, because we see that sometimes a lot of our students do struggle having that. So that without further delay, I can talk about this all day. I talked about it in Raleigh on Tuesday with our region, every district in our region. And so they're wanting to see copies of what we've done. So it's really exciting. So let's start with our first goal. And our first goal focuses on teaching learning. We're on page 8 for those of you viewing through Zoom. We're on page 8 to eliminate the opportunity gap by the year 2026. And that focuses on curriculum and instruction. And on page 9, you'll see that there are 8 goals. Excuse me, yes, the teaching, learning, equity, there are 8 goals. And so we'll turn to page 10. The first goal, and some of these I'll highlight, and then some of them I'll move over. If you see one that you have a question about, you can ask or hold it until the end, but I'll try to move quickly. But the first goal that is aligned with the state of North Carolina is to decrease the number of exclusionary discipline practices by subgroups. And so you'll see that some of those strategies that we're going to employ is implementing restorative practices. We've found that, suspensions don't necessarily stop students from doing anything. It's sometimes a break or giving them they're at home, but what can we do to have a more positive interaction with students to sort of reverse that behavior? Also looking at our disciplinary practices across pre-K 13, I always refer to Pitt County Schools as an institution of pre-K 13 because we're serving students from pre-kindergarten all the way to college using the early colleges. And then developing a curricular framework for training implicit bias and culturally responsive training. I'm going to pause there because I want to be very clear and clarify something when people look at that goal. And I want to start, and I usually start with this, and I didn't do it, but I'll do it here. When people see that kind of language, implicit bias and culturally responsive teaching, oftentimes they confuse it with the word equity, okay? And they see that and they think equity refers to what it initially was started with when it comes to just one thing, which is race. And so I want to be very clear, as I've also shared with our school board, and I've shared in many meetings like this, and I've shared Tuesday at DPI, that for Pitt County Schools, this is our definition of equity. We plan to give every student what they need. Every child in Pitt County Schools will get what they need. We're not taking anything from Chicago and giving it to South Greenville. We're not taking anything from South Greenville Elementary School, and then we're going to give that to Wintergreen. We're looking at Wintergreen. We're looking at South Greenville. We're looking at CMX. We're looking at Chicago, and we're saying, what do the students at Chicago need? What do the students at Hope need? What do the students at South Greenville need? What do the students at CMX need? And we're adjusting our resources as a district to make sure that every single child get what they need. And so when you hear out in the community that equity means one thing or another, please share the equity in Pitt County Schools, and based on how we're going to measure it, and we're going to be open and we share with our board how we're working towards these goals, that equity is giving every single child in Pitt County Schools what they need. Your child may need a conversation about how they feel. Another child may need more support in the area of math. Another child may need more after-school support in language arts. And one thing I'm so excited about, in January, every child from 3rd grade all the way to 12th grade will be able to access free tutoring online by using a vendor we've contracted with called iTutor. And any child can get that support. That's equity. That's giving every single child in Pitt County Schools what they need, and they're able to access it. All right. Objective 2 is improving school climate measures across all schools and grade levels. So we want to look at making sure that we have mental health support services with the things that just recently happened in our nation. That is so critical and so important that we're increasing our mental health professionals in our schools, that we increase healthy habits, getting up and moving around. I was up 5 o'clock this morning, getting my gym going and working out and my cardio because I'm trying to stay fit and keep those 80 pounds off that I lost. Oh my gosh. So that's so important for our students. And then the social emotional learning process in the school culture. I will say that Pitt County Schools, we have not implemented the Panorama Social Emotional Learning Survey this school year. But what we are continuing to do is making sure that students, if they have certain needs, that those needs are being addressed, whether it's social or emotional, all right? The next objective is talking about breakfast after the bell, making sure students have access to food and nutritious food. I will tell you, I just say this with excitement, objective 4, the last time I spoke with our director of, our coordinator of pre-kindergarten, all of our slots are filled. So we have actually met that goal. We have every slot for pre-K, it was filled. I think it was one point she said we have one and she got it filled, but every slot a couple of weeks ago was filled in Pitt County. We want to make sure we're decreasing the dropout rate and preparing students for post-secondary opportunities. This goal is so important to me, and it's important to Dr. Linker about post-secondary opportunities, making sure that students are able to access pre-apprenticeships and graduating school, whether it's with dual language programs in our middle schools and our high schools. I wish I could spend more time on that particular goal because that one is very powerful in what we're trying to allow our high school students to access post-graduation, and then decrease the number of students taking those remedial courses that they have to sometimes take in college there. And then our last goal is sustain and increase the number of educators of color in schools across Pitt County schools. This goal is a Department of Public Instruction goal. So all of these are pretty much the Department of Public Instruction. We've sort of organized it to fit our district. And those are the strategies of what the district is doing to increase students of color across the schools. One of the reasons that we've continued to embrace that goal is because based on the research says students of color, when they see people who look like them and able to make that connection culturally, they tend to do better academically. I will say this, that is not a discredit to all of our teachers in this room and in the profession who are educating our children. That is not intended in any way. And I will tell you, I'm so thankful for the teachers that I've had when I was born and raised in Edenton, North Carolina, kindergarten through 12th grade. I had 1 or 3 teachers of color, but the other teachers that were not of color were amazing and impacted my life tremendously. So that is not a discredit, but it is just simply saying, making that connection and also keeping the teachers that we do have that are of color, because oftentimes that's not the case. Goal 2 is talking about our student achievement. That's a lot of what we're in the business for, is about how our students are doing. And I will not spend a lot of time on these goals because these are just talking about our financial businesses as well as our one-to-one resources. We are a one-to-one district, so we've already achieved that goal. We are on page 18, objective 1, strategy 2. And we want to make sure our scores are continually increasing by embracing professional learning communities. And professional learning communities focus on collective efficacy, that we're better together than we are working apart or in isolation as teachers. And also to develop and support highly effective teachers by providing them with support. And on page 20, increasing the number of schools meeting and exceeding growth. So those are our achievement when we talk about our data and wanting where we want our students to be with achievement. That's what those goals are talking about. If Dr. Linker were here, he'd tell you 2020, I got here 18, 19, our scores jumped tremendously. 1920, based on the data we had, they were getting ready to take another huge jump. So I got here, there were 11 low performing schools. In 1 year, we chopped them down to 7. And we knew that we'd actually have 1 or 2 during the pandemic year. The pandemic hit and we didn't take the EOG. So we were just, we were devastated, but we're continuing to work and we're going to close those gaps. It's going to take some time, but we are going to close those gaps and continue to raise achievement. Let's look at goal 3. We're almost there. Increase educator preparedness to meet the needs of every student. And this is a DPI goal. There are 5 objectives there. And the first objective is to increase the number of culturally relevant, equity-focused resources for educators. And remember again that when we see that word, we are not talking about race solely. We are talking about making sure that our students have what they need and that teachers are prepared to educate every child based on what they need and not just looking at race, but sometimes it could be gender. Sometimes it could be, you know, geographic. What is it that you need to be successful? So we want to make sure we did hire 2 equity directors. And those equity directors are, one is an African-American female and one is a white female, and they work together in those areas and they're supporting all areas, human resources, curriculum, finance, etc. They're supporting all areas in our system. We're going to continue to work with our beginning teachers and making sure that we're able to sustain and keep our beginning teachers. That's objective 2. And then objective 3 is talking about relationships between our educator preparedness programs. They're called EPPs, is pretty much our universities, and just making sure that we're working with them to help teachers maintain our licensure. Also, objective 4, our employees and our staff are important to us, and we want to provide and sustain mental health services for our employees. This is so important. Last year was not only tough on students, but it was challenging for teachers. It was challenging for district staff. You know, there were moments we had to step away and kind of, you know, take deep breaths and think through these things because every minute things were changing. And if you're like me, I am type A, concrete sequential, and you know everything is in its place and very neat. When my nieces and nephews come over, they know, don't you touch that, you know, don't touch that, you know. So the back and forth and the decision making was just very challenging for all of us, but we worked through it. So we do offer mental health services and supports to our staff. That is in our strategic plan, and it's important to us to make sure that the well-being of our staff is at the top of our list. Also, objective 5 is to implement a comprehensive district-wide professional learning program aligned to the state and national standards. And if I could point to, I believe it is the last strategy 3, objective 5 on page 26. There are 2 things that we have that I'm very proud to share with you. The first is we're creating our own teaching fellows program. We know that there are challenges that we have with recruiting teachers and keeping them. One of the things that we talk about all the time is that we can't just focus on recruitment, but we have to focus on the retention because teachers leave also. We can get them, but they also leave. So what we're doing is we're giving scholarships to high school students who desire to who want to become teachers. They can choose their own university. So potentially what's happening is we've worked with Pitt Community College and they can start their teacher education courses in the 10th grade through Pitt Community. Once they graduate, they'll have 2 years under their belt through the 2+2 program. We will allow them to transfer to any university in the UNC system in North Carolina to finish the last 2 years, as long as they commit to come back to teach in Pitt County schools for a number of years. And so we're excited to roll out that scholarship this year. Last year, we rolled out the Master School Administration degree scholarship. We have our own principal fellows. We chose 2 outstanding principal fellows, and we are paying the cost for books, tuition, fees for them to go back to the university, earn their degree to become principals, and then they commit 4 years to be an assistant principal or principal here in Pitt County at no cost to them. Also, with the teacher education courses, it is at no cost to those 10th grader, I misspoke. 11th and 12th grade year. So there's no cost to them during their 11th and 12th grade year, no cost. We will transport them to the campus. We've also agreed and contracted with PCC that they would send an instructor to one of our schools where these students can also take the courses. And that is also through our Career and College Promise as well. Goal 4, which is our last goal, and I'm open to any questions. And this is one of my favorite goals, which is why all of you are here, because it talks about fostering a shared responsibility for student success by way of community engagement and safety. That's why we're here, because we want to engage with you and you want to engage with us. And we have 4 goals. And our first goal on page 30 talks about we want to increase effective communication between home, school, and the community. That first strategy, using digital methods to communicate between school, district, and home, and redesigning our website and our PCS website and launching it, etc. And Ms. Johnson has already checked that goal off her list, because we're committed to making sure that we're partnering and fostering that relationship with you and communicating. Our second strategy is to use a variety of methods to communicate with families. When I began in this role, I noticed that we would send things out in English, and schools would do that, not talking about just at district level, but we create things, or the department create things, and then we say, oh my goodness, we've got to get something out in Spanish. And I said to our team in curriculum, we can't continue to do that. Because if we're talking about diversity, equity, inclusion, that is a practice of exclusion, that I'm an afterthought. And so what we've committed to, and Ms. Johnson has been outstanding with this, is that when we send something home or something goes home, it's already in English and in Spanish. We've also purchased a platform that if at the school level, if they have students who speak another language, whether it's Arabic, if it's Chinese, Urdu, it doesn't matter what the language is, at no cost to the school, we take the cost at the district level. It can be translated fairly quickly by people who are well-versed in that language. So in any language, information can be communicated out. It's at the drop of picking up the phone and calling a number and get it done. If it's Spanish, we have people at the district level who can do it, or they can also call that number, and we incur that cost at the district level, because we want to make sure we're also inclusive. What an objective 2 is encourage and increase family and school involvement, making sure that people are involved in their school and in the district. Increase the number of community partners who are engaged in our mission and vision, which is why we're here talking about profile of a learner and getting to understanding how it aligns with our plan and how it's a priority for our students. And then that 4th goal is making sure that our schools are safe, and working with law enforcement and partnering with law enforcement through our strategic plan. That's our strategic plan. And we're here because we care about the community. I have been in this district for 17 years and have loved every single moment of it. And I'm committed to ensuring that every child in this district have what they need as they matriculate through us, and that when they leave us, they have the skills, the tools, and the dispositions to take care of themselves and to take care of their families. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Lasseter and Ms. Johnson. Y'all might want to stay towards the front. We will open it up. I see there's some chats. We're going to open it up for questions if anybody has them. Let's see. So one question that has already come up from the chat, and then I'll take a question from the room if there are any. You talked a lot about mental health available for our students, and there was a question about, are there mental health opportunities for staff?
Yes.
And is that part of the plan?
Yes, that actually was on, it's under goal 3, human resources. And
Dr. Lasseter, will you come stand near me? And that way the folks at home can hear that answer.
Objective 4, page 26.
Yep. So that, yes, we are planning to hire more continue to support our staff. That is actually, as Ms. Johnson said, page 26, goal 4 is to provide and sustain mental health services for employees. And our staff can access that at any time at no cost. And they do not, the company that we use, they do not report back to us and tell us the conversation or what's happened. The only information that we receive is maybe what is the reason they're calling, not linked to a person, but data on the aggregate with no names disclosed. Is it related to stress? Is it something with their personal life? And those are the things that we can kind of use to help inform us. But yes, that is available to staff.
Correct. All right. Okay, are there any questions from the room for Mr. Wilson? I knew I could count on you.
Yeah, you know I asked questions. What are the things that you talk about? And I believe you said you solicited input from the local businesses community. Well, one of the goals that they talk about is the personal one, which personal growth. And I assume they're talking about continuing within the work environment. What role did they accept in that process as well in terms of accommodating the need of the employee to continue that growth?
Can you repeat that question again?
The input from the stakeholders.
Yes.
Talk about the business community. One of the things that they asked in the personal
Profile.
yeah. They asked that the employee continue their learning process, education, I guess is the word is. What role are they willing to play to help assist that employee in doing that?
I'm going to repeat that just so folks on the Zoom can hear it, Mr. Wilson. I think what you're asking is what role have the businesses offered to play to help their employees continue to learn as a form of continuing education?
Well, one of the things that I'll say in partnering with us is they have been very gracious in opening up their businesses to allow students to do apprenticeships and to kind of work with our students to sort of give feedback on the working relationships that they have, and actually offering job opportunities to those students when they finish the apprenticeship. Now, there's one organization who has also committed that if these students finish and they do well and they're offered employment, they will pay for their master's degree. So there are so many opportunities that businesses are offering to make sure that those students from Pitt County schools are continuing and that they're doing well and they're being successful.
Thank you, Dr. Lasseter. Thank you for your question, Mr. Wilson. Other questions from the room? Let me go right behind you to Ms. Chance, and then we'll come here.
As a parent of an EC system, I'm really finding out how much of the learner's profile is incorporated into EC, where the strategic plan is for county schools are involved in the EC part, and what kind of data was collected and used to in that strategic plan.
So the question, just so folks on Zoom can hear it, and so we make sure we understood, what role does an EC student play in developing that profile of a learner, and what data was collected to help ensure that those students are included in the profile of a learner? Is that kind of what you're saying? Okay.
Okay. Do I need to go? Okay.
Yeah, sorry, we'll keep jumping.
All right, we can. All right. So this is what I share all the time. We look at our students who are in our Exceptional Children's Program. They are regular education first, and that's what we always say. So everything that's in our plan, it automatically applies, and we try not to. Our goal is not to separate them. So they're equally responsible for the problem solving and creativity and personal responsibility. Those things will be incorporated in the regular instruction that they receive, as well as in the special education setting that they receive. So it's not something that we looked at as separate and apart, because when we look at our students, you know, there's regular education first, and we have to provide them that first level layer of instruction and support first, then the secondary layer of the special education support needs that they have. So they're all included in this plan. They're not separate and apart. And our Exceptional Children's Director was a part of this plan, and she felt that there were things the things that existed in the current EC program, they're already doing these things through the IEP goals. They're meeting these things through the IEP goals, such as personal responsibilities, that 4 out of 5 times I'll make sure I'm coming to class with my pencil if that's a skill set or something that is written in the IEP for a student. So we use this as the baseline for all of our students, because it's all built in, whether you're a student who have a 504, whether you're a student that have an IEP, it's all built into this plan, and we're supporting every student to make sure they're able to access it.
All right, for those of you who joined us online, thank you so much for being here this evening. For those who are in the room, thank you for being here this evening. I do want to thank Jennifer Johnson and Dr. Steve Lasseter for joining us and sharing such valuable information as we look at continuing to strengthen our schools. I do want to throw a very special thank you to Deborah Brady for having all the refreshments available. So take those on the way out. And I want to turn it over to our president of Parents for Public Schools Board, Clarissa Lee, to close us out for the evening.
Good evening. I'm going to be very brief. I'm going to say ditto to everything that Colleen just said, but I do want to add this piece. As Dr. Lasseter and Ms. Johnson stated, with all hands on deck, I know this plan will prove to be successful in the upcoming years. Thank you for joining us and have a wonderful night.
Thank you so much, everyone.